Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cartoon Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Julian, and today I'm joined by Maggie. Maggie, long time coming. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good to see you.
Oh, it's finally so good to meet you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about one of my favorite artists of all time. This is her niece, Maggie. We're talking Mary Blair. Now, I got to know. Now, I know there's an exhibit going on right now with Mary Blair. I would love to
Mhm.
know, how do you get into the fold as far as coming in, doing a little Q&A, and being the voice for Mary that is no longer here? How does that happen?
Well, it happens, process of elimination, I guess.
Yeah.
one of, I'm the next of kin to Mary Blair. There's only two of us now, and that would be myself and my nephew, Kevin, who lives in Northern California. And my cousin Kevin, another Kevin, Kevin Blair, who was the youngest son of Mary, during his lifetime, or his later years, was in charge of all the Blair art. And that means Mary Blair, Lee Blair, and Preston Blair. And he unfortunately passed away at a young age of 55.
Yeah.
And my sister and he had never married, and he had left all of the art for all of those Blairs to my sister and me. Um, so we all of a sudden, because he died, like I said, very suddenly of a heart attack, 55, we had to take it over. And he was right just beginning to allow and get together the art for the big Tokyo exhibition in 2009. So people were wondering after he passed away, oh, well, what's going to happen? Are they going to have the exhibit? Is it all going to? So Jeannie and I had to kind of step up and say, okay, I guess it's us now. And yes, we want to go ahead with it. But it was a lot, and that took another year. And in the process, I took an early retirement, moved to Northern California. I was in LA at the time, moved to Northern California because so that Jeannie and I could be close together so that we could handle all these things between the two of us. And then my sister passed away a couple of years ago. And so it all went to me. So it's just me in terms of um, the legal legacy and the next of kin. So that's it.
Now, when you talk legacy, ladies and gentlemen, I implore you to pause this podcast right now and just Google Mary Blair. I mean, I told you before we hit
They might not come
record.
back. There's a lot.
Oh, please come back and listen to more of this because I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about some really cool stuff. But the fans that have listened to me for the last 5 years on this show know my affinity for your aunt. I mean, before I knew what art was, before I knew what color was, I was captivated by Disney movies, and a lot of them have to do with the art that your aunt would do. I mean, I know I'm not telling you anything you've never heard, or excuse me, never not heard before. So a lot of this is retreaded ground, I'm sure, for a
Okay,
lot of the
I love to hear it.
conversations you have.
Okay, and Mary would
Well,
too.
well, I'm glad because it's just, I don't think there's been another artist, especially within animation, that has been as influential, that has inspired more artists than your aunt. Now, when you said Kevin had passed away, very suddenly from a heart attack, and all of that kind of went to you and your sister to uphold the legacy. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, you knew your aunt, but going back and
Right.
looking through all of that art when you guys had to take it over, was there anything that surprised you? Was there anything going, oh my God, I've never seen this?
Oh, there was so much. There were things I hadn't seen. Some of the art from Alice, which was in the dream sequence. And in fact, Kevin Blair had, when all of the Blairs eventually had passed away, he brought all of the art to his house. And some of it, Kevin wasn't an artist. He was very scientific. He worked at Lawrence Livermore Labs and was very big on Apple computers and kept them all in good repair. So he had the art in different places. He had built a shed in his backyard. He lived up in Northern California, a little town called Brentwood. And then some of the other art he put under his bed in some boxes. So I know about 2003, John Kingmaker was, well, a little bit, even a little bit before that, because the book came out, The Art and Flair of Mary Blair came out in 2003. But to do research for it, it was Pete Docter, I believe, and Michael Giamo that came over to Kevin's house in Brentwood and photographed all this art. And they said, "Oh, Kevin, oh my goodness, you need to get these in boxes, archival boxes to protect it." So they were responsible at Pixar for getting him some really nice archival boxes, which I'm glad he had because he stored the art in those ever since then. And then it was still preserved for the museum in Tokyo. So
Now, with that being said, now this is probably going to be a hard question for you to answer because I know it's going to be a hard question for me to ask. But whenever I see art, I try to put myself into, whatever the artist was feeling at that time. Like I'm looking back at the artwork you have behind you. So I try to put myself in the mind of like, I wonder what they were feeling whenever they were doing X, Y, and Z. Right. But when you look at your aunt's artwork, what do you see? What do you feel? Do you put yourself in Mary's position? Do you try to see what she might have been feeling or what she might have been thinking at that time, or can you just sit back and enjoy it like a fan like we do?
no, I do enjoy it. I love it. And I realize that there's in every piece that she did, like for storyboards, could be taken separately as like a little vignette. I call them vignettes because instead of having an arm or a leg in one piece, I mean, it's a whole thought. She always had the people in her art, they were either interacting with each other, busy doing something else, but things were going on. And it somehow told a story. And knowing Mary, it was always a very upbeat, positive story. I think that's why people tend to love her art. And my sister and I, and my with my cousin Kevin, um, early on, we started a website, and we at one time, around about that time, 2003, when the book came out, we had this was the world of Mary Blair. We had a website, and we were selling giclées, high quality giclées of Mary's art, and all the animators bought them, and lots of people did, but we would get emails and letters from people that said, I gave this to my mom. She had cancer, and every morning when she woke up, she wanted to see her Mary Blair. It just made her happy. And I think that makes me happier than anything. And I would make Mary very happy, knowing that her art it didn't scare people. It made them happy.
Well, that's really cool to hear. And I hate asking this question because, like I said, whenever we do this podcast and somebody is no longer here, I always like to reminisce about them. Mary's been gone for a long time. I mean, she'll live on forever within Disney, within animation, within art. I mean, with watercolors. I mean, that lady, I don't have to tell you, created color in my mind. You know what I mean? I think color was flat before Mary. Even though I know color wasn't
I
flat, color
know.
was flat before Mary. You know what I mean? She really gave it a three-dimensional soul. Like when I look at it, just like you were talking about with that lady's mom that had cancer, she would smile and she would be happy. She was fighting something
Yes.
and that gave her respite. That gave her a little bit of time to not think about something she was battling. And I think that's what art's supposed to do. And I really think, like you were saying, like if Mary knew that now, she'd be smiling. Now,
Mhm.
going back to the question I always say I hate to ask, but how old were you when she passed away?
Oh gosh. That was 1978. I was probably around 25, something like that.
So you had gotten to spend a pretty decent amount of time with her growing up,
Oh,
So
yes. Real
she
happy.
was in your life really frequently. From all the books I always
Both
heard,
in,
yeah, she would love to spend time with you guys. What is your fondest memory of you and Mary? Does one stick out, or whenever you hear Mary and you, does one pop up?
um, not one in particular. I spent so much time with her, and people say, "Well, do you have pictures of you and Mary?" I said, "No, in those days, we didn't have our phones. We didn't take pictures, and
Yeah.
sometimes the private moments you just don't think to take a picture of."
Yeah.
And certainly back then, and I always tell this story when she would come out. Well, she was in California for a long time and then married Lee, moved back to New York. But then when she started working for Disney, she was the first, probably, bi-coastal artist that Disney had, or that anybody had, maybe. And she would come out and work on Small World and work on all kinds of things. She would spend time with my parents. That was kind of her headquarters up in Northern California. Fly back and forth sometimes on Disney's airplane, which I got to use sometimes too because I was a UCLA student then. But we're just, I just remember summers when she would stay there, and at night it was hot. We didn't have air conditioning then because mostly you didn't need it like you do now. But so we would sit in the backyard, no lights, no nothing, and you could see the stars
Mhm.
because you could then. It was just a little town in Campbell, and I would sit with Mary and we would just talk sort of into the night, and all I could really see was the embers of her cigarette, which would go up and down as she talked and drew from it. And it was, that's what I remember. And that we would talk about everything, you know, the stars, what was behind the stars. What do you want to do, Maggie? What, you know, the future. Just those are the times I remember, plus times when she was truly relaxed. And that was, unlike some people think sometimes, but she loved to paint. I mean, she was driven almost to paint. And she would get an idea, get up, doodle it, and then later she would have to go and paint it. But it wasn't a relaxing time. It was just something that had to come out. And
Mhm.
she was so fast with painting. But her relaxing time, which I got to enjoy a lot too when I spent a summer there, actually a couple of summers, and would go out on her boat on Long Island. Mary and Lee had a boat called the Valiant,
Mhm.
which was a family. And she would just sit in the boat and relax, and our hair would blow, and we would eat beans out of a can on a piece of white bread. When we got hungry, nothing tasted so good. Sometimes a little ketchup on it. And then when we were in town and great, then we'd go to nice restaurants and eat lobster. But on the boat, we'd have beans and Coke and she was just Mary in a bathing suit. So,
So I cook for a living, and whenever food
oh,
comes up, I absolutely love. I just like you were talking about with Mary, where it felt like she had to. Like, so I always think, whenever you pick your profession or whenever your profession picks you, you've got the people that want to do it, and then you've got the people that have to do it. There's something up here, right? Now, when it comes to that, it's not all food with me, but it is with bread. Like I've got 10 loaves of sourdough over there that I was working on
uh,
before.
I'm sorry.
I'll send you guys some pictures after. I've got them sitting on my counter because my customers outside of work, they always ask me for bread and my bagels, right? So it's just one of those things where I don't need a lot of sleep.
Bagels too.
Oh, I can make anything. I'm very good at cooking. I'm not very good at much, but I'm very good, especially when it comes to bread. Um, so it's the same thing where it's like if I get into something new, like there's a new bread I want to try, there's something that I've been wanting to like push or take my sourdough a little further, take my bagels a little bit further. I can't sleep. I can't concentrate. I can't I can't think about anything other than that until I get it out. So it's a very fascinating, like you had said, you had to do it. It's not you wanted to, you had to get it out so you could finally get to that stage where you can relax on the boat and eat the beans with the white bread and drink the Coke with the
Yes.
ketchup, right?
Yes, and because you couldn't do anything else.
No,
You
you
were
couldn't
out there
think,
in
you were
the
consumed.
water. Mhm.
Oh, absolutely. Now, with that being said, I have to imagine that you got to see her paint a lot, growing up with her and then seeing some
Mhm.
stuff when you would spend some summers. What was it like watching her paint? Was she explaining what she was doing? Was she just so hyper focused on what she was doing that everything kind of blended out? What was it like?
Yeah. Well, when I would watch her paint, it would be during the summer weeks that I spent at their house. And
Hmm.
she had a very modern, cutting edge home. And the studio and the master bedroom was up on big poles, steel poles in one part of the house. The rest of the house was downstairs. So it was entirely separate. So I would go up there sometimes just to chat or say, well, are you hungry? Do you think should we make a sandwich? Sure, she would still be painting, but she would talk sometimes while she painted, but and somebody asked me this the other day. Yes, she smoked, but never at the same time that she was painting. I
Hmm.
guess she would smoke and relax and then, "Oh, okay, she'd put that out and then pick up the brush and finish it. But she was very fast anyway, but did not, in case anyone wants to know, didn't smoke and paint at the same time.
Was she ever listening to music, anything like that? Was she ever multitasking? Was there something else going on while she was painting, or was she just solely focused on paint?
Yeah, I think mostly on painting. I don't remember any music. I do, and I've talked about this before when I would go, when she came out in 1963 to start on the World's Fair attraction. It's a Small
Mhm.
World. She would stay at the Tolucan Motel. And I, being at UCLA, that was my first year. So we were both away from home, and I would come and stay with her and spend weekends. And so weekends were relaxing. We would lay by the pool and eat hamburgers and just sunbathe. But she always had pad and pencil next to her. And it was creating was always in her mind. And when she was the most relaxed, I think that's when she was the most creative. So she would pop up, draw a little sketch, and then lay back down on her towel and then read. So it was always there, but in a relaxed way.
That's really cool. And I want to stick on this food for just a little bit. Like I said, I've loved food since I was such a little kid. Um,
Mhm.
and it's something we all need too, right? Do you remember what her favorite meal might have been?
Well, I remember what she liked to do, and she didn't like a lot of cooking. I mean, that wasn't where she put her energy.
Hmm.
And like she would whip up when I was there and when in between doing painting, and she would whip up something she called a pink cow, which was just beet borscht, sour cream, and then in a blender with a little slice of cucumber on top. It was
Hmm.
good. But so she was it was a kind of a precursor of protein shakes, maybe. But one of her favorite things when she did cook, mostly Lee would do the cooking and he would like to barbecue. He would
Hmm.
do that. But she did she had I forget what you call them, but it was a clay dish with a top in
Hmm.
the form of a chicken.
Okay.
And she would put a chicken in there, a whole chicken, surround it with vegetables, and stick it in the oven. It would come out. It was beautiful.
Like a Dutch oven?
Like that, but it was made of clay. So it was
And
clay and
shaped
it
like
was
a chicken.
shaped like a chicken. And it's
Love
got a
it.
name, and I guess I can't think of it right now. And it comes from Mexico, I believe.
Hmm.
But yeah, there was the bottom part which held the chicken and the vegetables, and then the top was a cover shaped like a sitting hen
Hmm.
chicken, and then you would put it in the oven, and yeah, it was made out of clay, and you would bake it that way. And it was and garlic in it, lots of garlic. She loved that. So that's really what I remember her cooking. Otherwise, she loved to go out to eat. So when I was there, I got to go to a lot of nice restaurants, which was nice.
What was your favorite restaurant she would take you to? Anyone stick out to you?
Actually, it was friends of hers that, and I was became friends with the daughters, and that was Sonia Sonia and Mike Pepe, and it was Peter's Backyard,
Hmm.
and that was in the village, Greenwich Village, and so we would go there a lot because that's their friends own that, and just have great meals. And then I remember another place, and it was at a hotel, I think Lexington. I have a big picture of it, and that's when I had my first lobster. And I had never had lobster growing up in Northern California, my little town. I don't think we had a restaurant that served lobster, but um, that was an experience for me. And Mary introduced me to lobster, which that was a little traumatic because I had to pick out a lobster before it was, and then it was cooked for me. That bothered me a little bit, I have to tell you, but it was delicious. So that,
I can
and
remember.
I do remember going to Sardi's with all of the art on the walls, all of the drawings and the autographs and those things. That was fun.
Now, obviously, this is back in the day before, social media is a thing. Nobody has a camera in their pocket, right? But Mary was such a massive piece to something that was building, with the Walt Disney Company, and even then, as on her own with art. Do you remember if you guys would have been, approached a lot at dinner time, or would people spot Mary and come over and talk, or so she was
No,
able to be one with the people and be one with the crowd, huh?
right? Yeah, I was
Oh.
talking just yesterday to a friend of mine who is Marie Crump, who is Rolly Crump's widow.
Mhm.
And she was talking about how important Rolly's fans were to her and how much they loved him. And they did a lot of podcasts and all. But Rolly lived to be 93 and Mary only lived to be 66. She wasn't able to enjoy her fans because
Mhm.
it really didn't happen in that big a way until after she died. Because after Walt passed away, there, she was allowed to finish the contemporary hotel mural, the two murals, and that was it. There wasn't any more work for Mary, just the work that she and Walt had discussed and contracted on before he died. And they both, I was talking to another friend of mine, it's just amazing what Mary accomplished in her life because she died at age 66. And I believe Walt died at age 66 also. They were both, well, by today's standards, that's young. And it's young for creative people to die that. But what they accomplished, wow. So, but she didn't have, like you were saying, that visibility of enjoying a fan base. Uh, what they did was when they moved in 1970 to Northern California, Soquel, a little town by Santa Cruz, they would give they would give parties and open houses for some of the young artists, and a lot of the new guys at Pixar would come. And this was before Pixar merged with Disney. So I remember getting a letter from somebody who went to one of those parties and he said it was great. And Lee talked a lot about his art and showed a couple of animation reels because he worked on Fantasia, a lot of things. And then he walked around the house, saw art, and then he saw a woman in the corner sitting there, and he went over and introduced himself. And she said she was Mary Blair, Lee's wife. And would he like to see her art? And so he said yes. She took him into the other room and she took out a portfolio. And then he realized who she was. But she was pretty modest. but people knew of her and of her talent, but it was mostly the other artists, I believe, at that time that did.
Now, this is a hypothetical question, and I hate to ask, but I'd be remiss not to ask it. If if Mary could be here and see this now, what do you think she would say about just the fandom that is around her? Do you think there'd be one word, one sentence? Do you think she would just be just awestruck? What do you think she would think, or what do you think she would say, in your opinion?
I do. I think that one word that she said when she first saw the contemporary hotel mural up for the first time, she said, "Wow." I mean, that was she didn't pontificate a lot, but that's no, she was moved by things. I think she would be moved just by the attention, even though she knew that her art had worth, but even towards the end of her life, like I said, she wasn't recognized for that, but she was recognized, her art was recognized as being good. And I remember also a few years ago being contacted by a woman who had a piece of her art
Mhm.
that she inherited through her mother, who was a dentist, that Mary had given her in a bartering situation in exchange for some dental work that she needed. So that's yeah, she would be amazed.
If you don't mind me asking, what was the piece? Do you remember?
It was called The Ballet Lesson,
Hmm.
and it's on our website,
Okay.
magicofmaryblair.com, under Mary's personal art. No, I love it. And this woman had the original, and we made a clay of it because, like I said, my sister and I, we inherited the legal rights to all of Mary's personal art. So we did have the rights to it, but it was so nice to hear the story behind it. And another woman contacted me years before, and she was a doctor, and she lived in New York at the time, and she had a collection of some of Mary's children's paintings that she did probably for Golden Books, but she
Mhm.
bought them at a church bazaar. And Mary and Lee both would do that. You know, just well, they did that more out of I think helping the church too, because in those days they had more money when they were both working like that. Right. Right. So there are people that have art that they got in that way, and which was nice. And there was another person who had some art that he got, maybe about 15 years ago at in a big box at it was the Pasadena, the Rose Bowl,
Mhm.
the flea market that they have once a month. And it was a big box called Disney Art. And he bought it for $40, sight unseen. He figured he couldn't lose for that. And there was a lot of Mary's concept art in there, different things. So it was a treasure.
Now, are you
So it's
you
still happening.
you've been doing this for so long, keeping excuse me. You've been doing this for so long, keeping the legacy of the Blair name alive, really pushing Lee and Preston and Mary. Has there been anything that you've seen that you might have seen when you were a kid or when you were younger and you didn't know that anybody still had it or it was still around? Has anything surprised you while keeping the legacy alive of the Blair name?
No, just here and there, like I said, when I hear from people that
Hmm.
acquired a piece either through in payment for something, and then there was also something that came out, because Mary was very, well, both of them were, good community people in Great Neck, and they lived there a lot of years on Great Neck, Long Island, but she painted the bottom of a local swimming pool. And
Oh,
it had
wow.
mermaids and different things. Yes. And that was something I didn't know about. But
Is it
Kevin
still there?
Blair, that's a good question. I don't know. Um, but there was a newspaper article and there was a picture of it, and Kevin Blair had that also. But that was, yeah,
Wow, that is so
I
it's
remember.
crazy to see where your aunt pops up and where your uncles pop up, where your
Yeah.
family pops up.
Hmm. Yeah, and for, and it's funny since they started out in art school, Chenard's together, and their art in the very beginning was kind of similar. I mean, in ways they had the same teachers, and they just developed a style of watercolor, and then they both became members of the California Watercolor Society, and then Lee remained that way, even though he went into animation with Disney and some of the other um, iWorks
Mhm.
and other places. But at one point, Mary just turned and said, this is a quote that I didn't get directly. I read it somewhere that she said to Preston, I just don't think I can do another watercolor. I love illustration. And at that point, she was beginning to get some recognition at Disney where she could see her art actually becoming something on the screen. And she loved that process. It was exciting to her. It was fun. And it was, I guess, pretty much, as they say, what she was meant to do. And but she did do some wonderful watercolors, but not after, gosh, not after probably the mid 40s. I
Yeah.
don't remember anything after that.
Now, I want to circle back to something you had mentioned earlier. I wrote it down just so I wouldn't forget. And you said she was a bi-coastal artist, right? Now, a lot of people will say that, they really noticed a huge shift in Mary's work when she did the South American tour with Disney, when they went down there for 3 months and she
Mhm.
got to see the beautiful colors. And that's where she was super inspired. That's where her art went from, and not saying it was low, but it was here and then it just skyrocketed, right? That's when Mary really became Mary. Now,
Mhm.
with that being said, did you notice, and you've gotten to look at so much of her artwork, but did you notice any difference when she was working maybe on the West Coast and then when she was working on the East Coast? Did that East Coast influence her, did that West Coast influence her? What were some of the differences you might have seen from coast to coast, Mary?
I don't know. No one's ever asked me that.
Oh, I'm glad I got a question that nobody's ever asked. I won.
No, and no, it's a good question. I'm trying to think if I noticed anything. Most of her art, well, it was always within a certain context. In other words, for Disney or for a film, there was a story which she was illustrating, and when she was back east, she had an agent. I mean,
Mhm.
she was good. She had Celine for many many years, who got her advertising campaigns. It was Meta Gold and all kinds of them, and she was always asked to do uh, a campaign. So that would be within certain boundaries, but like with the Pall Mall art, which a lot of people just love. I know that's not popular with the Disney people because they don't do smoking so much. But the Pall Mall cigarette arts
Mhm.
that in her estate that were done, this was before the packaging was on. It didn't say Pall Mall cigarettes. They were just red boxes with white sticks coming out of them, and there might be a scene of fruit or a chessboard or a sailboat behind them, something that had a theme. Um, that that gave her a lot of freedom, I think, and also the Golden Book. She was also given a theme, but as far as a difference in both coasts, mostly her West Coast work was for Disney.
Mhm.
So that was within the Disney parameters, more or less, more of a story than a campaign. And if I can say childlike, maybe more childlike
Yeah.
with the Disney art as opposed to to the cigarette ads, of course. But that would already did. until she got into the Golden Books. And that was very childlike and very, very Mary. It's beautiful.
Now it's funny, I didn't know she did anything with Pall Mall. So Pall Mall was the cigarette company my grandpa smoked. He was a three packs a day
Uh,
kind of guy.
oh, that's
And my grandpa was one of the coolest people, coolest human beings I've ever met in my life. And I'm not even saying he was smoking them for Mary because he was a movie fan. He wasn't really a cartoon fan, but he loved movies. So I'm gonna say Grandpa was a fan of Pall Malls because of Mary. So thank you for sharing that story with me. I
okay.
appreciate it.
I think
So
she'd like
yep. No.
that.
Oh man.
No, but a
You
lot
were
of the
saying.
artists have said to me, I mean, I was Alice Davis, if you can imagine, who did, the costumes for, the
Mhm.
small world and the piece. She said, oh, I love that cigarette art. She really did. A lot of the artists do. I mean, there was what started Mary in becoming more exposed to the public was actually Kevin Blair, her son, who had all the art until he passed away. He he was kind of a recluse in a lot of ways, and he had all the art, but he had never given a show. And he was approached eventually by Cartoon Art Museum in San Francisco. Well, how about just a small show of, your mom's artwork? And at that time, he was kind of sharing it with, like I said, with John Kingmaker, Pete Docter, and the book was coming out. And so it was actually Pete Docter that kind of encouraged him to say, well, you have all this artwork, Kevin, might be time to share it. So that's what started the early exhibit with the Cartoon Art Museum. In fact, they just put out, they had a talk for the museum on the whole process of, because they helped curate the Tokyo exhibit with Mary's son. But their little art museum attracted um, Diane, Diane Disney Miller. She came to it. She loved the art. And in fact, she got a whole session by herself in the museum to look at all the art. And at that time, I mean, well, she was living up in Northern California where they had been for a long, long time, but she just loved it. And then the people from Studio Ghibli, they came
Mhm.
to it and they said, "This is incredible. This is amazing." And so it all began, and then they talked to Kevin, and that's how the big exhibition at in Tokyo was started.
Does any of it feel real to you? I mean, this has been spanning decades of your family's art. I mean, and like I said at the beginning of the show, I can't think of one artist that it will continue to inspire future generations. Like it's as long as we as a people are still alive, there are going to be people that will see a Mary Blair, whether it was a Golden Book, whether it was Peter Pan, whether it was Mr. Toad, Ichabod, doesn't matter what it is that she worked on, she will inspire and continue to inspire. Um, but does any of it feel real? Like, just does it feel surreal? Does it feel real? Does it feel like this is a dream? Does it feel real to you?
It does in a way. I mean, I consider her. I told someone I miss my family, and that includes because most of them are gone now,
Yeah.
and I feel lucky to have so much good time with Mary.
Hmm.
Um, and that was real. And I, in looking through a lot of boxes, which I go over and then I go back and look for something else, go through all of them again. And I found some letters from family members, and they would say, "Oh, don't forget, tune into Disney. It's going to be Mary talking about her new ride at the World's Fair." And then I found a card from Mary. I guess they made actual um, greeting cards that had pictures of this the World's Fair on them. And it was a little guy with a balloon. He says, "Just hanging out at the World's Fair." And she wrote to me and she said, I'm still here and we're still working, getting this ride together. So up till the last minute, they had the ride shipped, from Southern California to New York, but she and Rolly Crump and a lot of others were in New York putting it all together before the fair opened. So yeah, it was uh, just a lot of stuff.
I can imagine. And this will be the last question I ask you before we bring a special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a second special guest coming on soon. When you, and
Bonus.
this might be too much of a meta question to ask, so I apologize if it is. Um, but when you surround yourself or you go back and you look at all the stuff that Mary has made, is there one painting or is there one drawing? Is there one book or is there one anything that when you look at it, you feel like she's right there with you? Does anything stick out to you?
Well, it might be probably the porcelain plate that she made, and it was beautiful, and it was probably in the from the 60s, and
Mhm.
she did a lot of some pottery work and had a kiln for a while. But it was actually I grew up loving horses, so I was taking horseback riding lessons. Other kids were doing ballet. I was doing horseback riding lessons. So she put me on a horse. It was a rocking horse, but she drew me on a horse on that plate and put my name on it. And that plate I carried with me all through college, all through all my work life, all the moves I made, and it still hangs on my wall today. And that makes me think of Mary, brings me close, and I can see her painting those things for all of her family members for Christmas. And that was, yeah, that's always been special.
You made my eyes water quite a bit with that one. So thank you for sharing that story with me. I really appreciate that. Now, as we start to transition towards the end of this episode, I got to thank you before we bring on our special guest. I got to thank you. This has been one of the guests. Obviously, like I said, Mary has been gone sadly for so long. Um, so this is one of the guests that I never really thought I'd get to learn more about. I've read every book that John's put out. I've listened to every podcast that's out there, anything that they've got on YouTube. I just try to absorb as much as I can because she is one of those people that is just so fascinating. When you look at American history, whether it's animation, whether it's art, whether it's painting, it doesn't matter what it is. It's a fascinating person. I don't want to sound like one of those guys, but just knowing that she was a woman in a male dominated industry, knowing that she completely changed the face of animation. She made additions to colors. She put colors that didn't go together. She was Walt's favorite artist. That everybody likes to say that because it was true, ladies
Well,
and gentlemen.
I can tell you where that came from for me. And I was, well, Mary was very close to Alice and Mark Davis.
Hmm.
So when I would stay with Mary, a lot of times we would go over and have dinner with Mark and Alice. And then after Mary passed away, I remained, close to them. And it was Mark Davis who said at dinner one night, he said, Mary was Walt's favorite. Some of the guys hated her, but she was his favorite. And I thought, wow, for Mark, who was, I mean, an incredible, one of the nine old men, incredible artist and a man, to say that he was a wonderful guy, to say that about Mary, without any ego at all. I mean, I'll never forget that night when he said that. So I know that that was certainly his opinion, and I guess a lot of other people too.
Now, I told you that was going to be the last question I asked you. However, I lied, Maggie, so I apologize.
Right.
Mark Davis is my favorite of the nine old men. I love his book back there. I've got it back there. I'll show you later. I would love to know, is there one story, one moment, is there anything you think of when you think of Mark Davis?
Well, mostly that time around the table and what a normal guy he was. I mean,
Mhm.
he just was. And what a great relationship he had with Alice, who was always cooking. She gave me recipes. I mean, I don't cook, but I still have the recipes just in
Yeah.
case. They would make great, chocolate tapioca things and all kinds of things. But is there anything special? I went with them and my cousin Kevin. He was living in Northern California. He came down when and he accepted posthumously the Windsor McKay Award for Mary. I believe it was 1996, something like that. And Mark and Alice took us and we had dinner at their house before. They were just the most loving people. And I always, and then later on, when Mary wasn't around, and when I moved to Northern California, and then I would come back and sometimes stay with Alice. And this was after Mark was gone sometimes. And I would sleep, not in the guest house, but somehow I'd sleep in the house and would be that room with all of the jungle paintings that
Hmm.
Mark did. It was a little scary with all of the masks and all, but it was just covered with art. And it was Mark. He was just so prolific. His work was everywhere in that house.
Well, thank you for sharing those stories about Mark and Alice, and then thank you again for sharing those stories about Mary. Like I said, I really appreciate it. I didn't think I'd really get to hear anything that I haven't read or haven't watched on YouTube. So, like I said, I appreciate your time and your stories. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest. Maggie, would you like to introduce our special guest?
Oh, yes. Yes. This is Eric Glaw. And
Welcome to the
Eric
show, Eric.
is
Thank you.
Eric is a screenwriter, and he has written a wonderful screenplay about Mary Blair. And I've known Eric now, what's almost 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to introduce him and let him tell you how it all came about.
So, take us through it, man. How does the idea go from I got to write a story about Mary Blair?
How
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for saying.
I was in grad school back in 2016 and was actually in an animation class, not even in a
UCLA,
script at
so
UCLA.
both Bruins here.
And I was in a history of animation class, not even screenwriting, and was doing a project. We had to do a project on someone animation related. So I picked Mary Blair and I met Maggie. I went up and interviewed her when she was living in Santa Rosa, California. And during the time we were speaking, everything you guys have already talked about hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, this is an amazing story of an amazing woman during a time when women didn't have the roles, weren't allowed the roles, things like that, in such a male dominated industry. And just with the history that Maggie gave me and the personal touches and the story she gave me, just it gave so much color and so many layers to a screenplay. And I asked her I think it was pretty formal for me, but I asked kind of formally if they would be okay with me writing a screenplay about Mary. And that was when Jeannie was still with us. And I spoke with the three of them. I went back up, interviewed them. They, of course, said yes. And Maggie helped me for a long time. I wrote of the first draft, and then we went back, and she gave me tons of historical little tidbits and pieces of information that really, really made it personal. And it is like my baby, and it's the one thing that I want made for Mary and for the family, and for me. But it's just wonderful. And when I was writing it, I felt like somehow I was channeling Mary. I felt like she was kind of writing through me in a way. I felt very connected to her, and I just feel like I'm a part of the family now. I mean, they've
You
kind of
are.
adopted me into the family. Uh, but it was just an amazing experience, and it's something that I push all the time.
Who was your teacher at UCLA?
I had a few. I had Linda Voorhees was the
Mhm.
main. She was my feature teacher, who I still am actually having coffee with tomorrow. But she was a huge influence, and I wrote it in her workshop.
Hmm.
I had Charles Holland. He is a mostly TV writer. I took a TV pilot class with him, and I had Anna Lily Amarpour, who wrote. She went to UCLA as well, and wrote some amazing things. She was a visiting professor who I was. You have to sort of audition to get into the
Hmm.
classes. Who I was able to learn from. Howard Suber, I learned from him. He actually has an amazing um, series on it's on HBO Max now called The Power of Film, and
Hmm.
it's The Power of Film. I don't want to be saying the wrong thing. Um, and it's just episodes about what he taught at UCLA, and it was about story structure, and it was about not just that, but also about keeping going and not sometimes artists we can feel like we're a fraud at times. And the
Hmm.
biggest thing I remember him teaching was you are never a fraud. Um, I mean, he was amazing, Howard Suber. And then some other people I can't remember right now, but such an amazing it's been such an amazing journey. And now I help Maggie with the social media with the Instagram page.
There's a social media. I'm going to learn,
Yeah,
but I'm working.
we do it in tandem. She
We have
sends me
to,
things and I post them.
yes.
Um, I was actually just working on a post,
Yeah.
a new one. But and I'm also she's given me the title of a state representation as well. So that's super special. And I don't want to cry, but
No.
so
It's okay. I got all teary-eyed when she brought up the porcelain plate story. So it's okay to cry here. Now, I gotta know, man. So you've peeled back the layers of the Blair family, Mary in particular, since you're doing this screenplay. Is there one moment in Mary's life, or is there one story that Maggie might have told you, or is there one thing you might have found on your own that just went like, oh my God, this had, and we don't have to say it because I don't want to ruin anything or spoil anything, but is there one moment in particular that you go, this has to be in it, and you worked from that?
there were many. Um, yeah, and I don't want to say because it's definitely parts of the story that are more compelling is all I'll say. But
Gotcha.
uh, many. Just the bi-coastal aspect, I didn't really realize until Maggie explained it to me. Like, I think it didn't hit me in my head. I think I realized it when she said that nobody did that then.
Mhm.
And she was one of the first that would fly back and forth and just work and stay in Burbank and do her work and then go back home.
And sometimes Walt would fly out to New York, Long Island, and they would have their meeting there. And sometimes he would bring his wife, Lillian. So they went back and forth.
and also that Walt, the only art that he had of any artist was Mary in his house,
Yeah.
the Peruvian girl in the boy. I mean, that's widely known, but I didn't know that at the time when I learned it. And there's an entire scene where there's an entire scene about that in the, just to, well, not a long scene, but there's a moment in it, I should say,
Yeah.
that is, just so
Lots of
special.
Easter eggs.
Yeah. So, so many.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it, and I know I don't want to get anybody into trouble, give anything away. Now, I'll cut this part out if we need to, but do you have a name for the movie just yet? And can you share it or no?
Yeah. It's called, entitled Small World.
Hmm.
And it was kind of a working title at first. I was like, I can't really think of anything else, but it makes sense with the arc of the story and the trajectory of where it goes.
Mhm.
And then also, I kept thinking that it's perfect because it's this, she had, in a way, it's her small world, but it was so huge.
Hmm.
In her own mind, I don't know if she really felt like you asked earlier if there was any like fanning out or anything like people coming up to her at dinners or anything. And people, she didn't realize that at the time. And I think they were just being artists and she was just doing what she loved
Hmm.
along with so many others that she worked with. And so it's kind of ironic because it's a small, her world, I think to her was so small, but it wasn't small at all. And I could be wrong, but that's sort of
No,
why I picked that, and we've gone with
that's
it.
right. Yeah.
No,
And it's
it's
a
a
small
beautiful
world.
title. Oh yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful
It is.
title.
I mean, it's so obvious, and yet it's so layered.
Mhm.
It's
Oh, it's perfect, right?
Mhm.
So, here's coming the last question for you, Eric. Now, just to know, Maggie set the bar by making me get very teary-eyed. It almost came. So, the bar is up here. So you got to crush it. Now, is there one piece of art that you've gotten to see that Mary got to work on that has Mary's name to it that just makes you go, wow? Or what's your favorite piece if that's an easier question?
Um, my favorite piece is it's from Alice, and I may cry when I talk about this, but and I don't know if it was at the exhibition, I can't remember, but it's the one where she's sitting with, is it the tortoise? They're sitting and they're watching the sunset
oh
together.
yes.
And now, why am I forgetting who it is? But it's her and she's watching the sunset,
Was
I
it the
think,
walrus
and the carpenter.
and the
That's
carpenter?
it.
Yes,
And they're sitting
and
watching.
it
Um,
may have been part of the art that didn't get in the film, too,
yeah,
which is a lot what I like to believe.
but that it's just to see it and to know Mary more and to see it and to feel and to also feel it as a person and be empathetic towards what's going on in the scene, that they're just taking a moment together in this crazy world that's Wonderland, and
Mhm.
they're
Good.
enjoying the sunset
Yeah,
is beautiful to me. I don't
yeah.
know. It's just such a nice moment that I really love. So
Well, thank you for sharing that, man. I really appreciate it. It's crazy what your aunt can do to us, ain't it, Maggie? All we got to do is
Yeah,
look at a
I know.
piece and
See,
then,
you hit the
yeah,
bar.
yeah.
and that should tell you everything you need to know, folks, about the project that they're working on, that this is in very, very good hands. And I can't wait to see this. I hope it's something soon because man, if we need anything more in this world, we need more Mary Blair. Now, before we sign off, if there's some fans out there that might not know and want to know more about Mary, where can they go? I know you got some websites, you got an Instagram page as well, but where can they go to find out more about Mary?
Yeah, well, the website,
Mhm.
magicofmaryblair.com. It's been done years ago, but I wrote about Mary and growing up with her. And so there's uh, the family part, and then there's her gallery, and then there's also a gallery with Lee and Preston and a lot of that. So it gives a lot of background. And in fact, and Eric is working on, we'll have a section on Mary's murals where all of the murals will be up there and the photos. And he's already done one for the Walt Disney Museum, which after a certain period of time, we're allowed to post. So we can do that. So there'll be, yeah, there'll be places to go. So that, and then there's an Instagram page, which,
Yeah, the Instagram that is basically directly tied to the website, and it was inspired by the website. I just sort of started
Mhm.
doing it, and
But
then it's more formal now. But
they're connected. And so it
obviously,
makes it easy, I think.
mhm, absolutely.
You can
And
look
then
up.
the Cane Maker books are obviously just other than social media and websites and things are so perfect, and you have links for those, I
Mhm.
think, I'm pretty sure, on the website. Yeah,
Yes,
And it's never
absolutely.
too far from where I'm at. You know what I mean, ladies and gentlemen? You got to go and get them. And all those links will be in the description of both audio and video. So all you gotta do is point, click, and then it's gonna go straight to the website and straight to the Instagram page. Well, Maggie and Eric, I gotta say thank you again for you guys' time. Thank you again for your story. This has been something that 5 years ago when I set out, I've said this over the last couple episodes, but I had a bucket list of guests. I had a bucket list of topics, and over the last couple weeks, I got to cross two of those off. I got to talk to one of my favorite artists of all time, and Andreas Deja, just a few short weeks ago. Um, and I got to talk to you guys about my one of my favorite artists of all time. So thank you again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Oh man, the pleasure's all been mine. Well, that's been Maggie. That's been Eric. I've been Julian. It's been the Cartoon Chronicles podcast, and this has been another piece and a huge piece of your childhood. Good night.